Beloved child, can you sense it? That gentle whisper threading through the morning light, soft yet undeniably real? Before your thoughts fully awakened, before consciousness settled into the familiar patterns of worry and planning, something sacred was already singing over you. A tender pull, a warm embrace, a knowing that today carries purpose beyond the ordinary. You are awake, intentionally. Your presence in this world is neither casual nor accidental. The very breath filling your lungs right now isn't leftover air from yesterday's struggles. It's a deliberate gift. One I continue giving because, despite every doubt, fear, or resignation you've whispered to yourself in the quiet hours, you still belong here. You belong in this moment, this season, this unfolding chapter of your story. Even when the narrative feels unclear, when the plot seems to have lost its way, joy dances in today's atmosphere. Not the manufactured cheerfulness that pretends everything is perfect, not the forced optimism that denies real pain, but authentic joy. The grounded kind that emerges when my spirit touches a weary soul and declares with unwavering certainty, we're still walking this path together. The sacred space of simply being. This morning requires nothing from you except presence. You need not earn your way into my acceptance, or prove your faith has remained intact through the storms. You don't need to demonstrate that you're okay, or that your spiritual life is as vibrant as it once was. I'm not waiting for your strength to manifest. I am your strength. I'm not demanding your perfection. I'm offering my peace. From this day's first breath, understand that your story continues unfolding with beauty. Nothing has been wasted in the economy of heaven. Nothing is finished while breath remains in your lungs. Regardless of how distant you feel from where you imagined you'd be by now, regardless of the dreams that seem to have faded or the opportunities that appear to have passed, you haven't been disqualified. You are mine, and that reality transcends every earthly circumstance. A subtle deception creeps in over time, especially for those who've loved deeply, served faithfully, and carried others' burdens without complaint. It whispers poison into tired hearts. Perhaps your moment has passed. Maybe you've given everything, leaving nothing for yourself. Maybe there's no space remaining for your voice, your dreams, your unique contribution to this world. But those whispers don't carry my voice. I don't speak in dismissals or operate with expiration dates. My gifts and calling over you are irrevocable. They cannot be canceled by circumstances, revoked by disappointment, or diminished by the passing of years. I don't change my mind about you during slow seasons or shifting circumstances. I don't cease working in you when life grows quiet. If anything, silence is where I accomplish my deepest, most transformative work. You were never merely useful to me, never just another set of hands to complete tasks or fill gaps in my plans. You are my delight. You bring me joy simply by existing, by awakening each morning and turning your face toward me, by still caring about things that matter. Yes, even when your prayers feel tired and your words seem to carry no weight, even when your worship feels muted and your hope appears dented, the very fact that your heart still seeks closeness is miraculous. I see it, honor it, and am moved by it in ways that human language cannot fully capture. The season of hidden ripening. You're not fading in my story. You're ripening, becoming more authentic, more rooted, more radiant in ways that don't depend on others' recognition or the world's applause. The depth of character being formed in you now carries more weight in eternity than any visible achievement ever could. I've never needed you to shine like others. I've only asked you to remain connected to me, to draw your life from my life. Remember, my words spoken through my Son, I am the vine, you are the branch. If you remain in me, you will bear fruit. Not might, not maybe, will. I didn't specify it must be fast or impressive, only that it would be. And it will be, in ways that surprise you, in seasons you don't expect, through pathways you haven't yet imagined. Some seasons are for sprouting, quick growth that's visible and exciting. Others are for blooming, the beautiful display that captures attention and brings joy. Still others are for resting deep beneath soil where no one can see, where roots grow strong and foundations become unshakable. But every season matters in the agricultural cycle of spiritual life. This one you're in now, it isn't wasted or off course. I'm still here, and you still belong. This journey isn't about returning to who you used to be or recovering a version of yourself you barely recognize anymore. This is about realizing that who you are now, scarred perhaps, quieter maybe, wiser certainly, possibly slower but definitely deeper, is still the one I've chosen to carry, my light in this generation. You don't need a title to carry me, or a platform to release my presence. You don't need recognition or approval or any external validation. You just need willingness. And that willingness to say yes, to try again, to believe something beautiful could rise from these ordinary days. That sacred willingness remains alive in you, perhaps buried but never extinguished. Beginning each day with divine joy. Let's start this day differently. Let's begin with joy. Not because everything is resolved or certain, but because I am certain. I am certain about you, about your value, about the goodness I've hidden within this season, like treasure waiting to be discovered. I know what I've planted in you and what's growing even now beneath the surface of your awareness. Even if all you see is dry ground, cracked earth that seems incapable of producing life, you're not seeing wrong. You're seeing too early. You're looking at the soil before the rain, the field before the harvest. But I see what's coming, and I'm not anxious about it. I'm excited. My heart quickens with anticipation over what's about to emerge in your life. Can you open your heart a little more this morning? Can you give me not your best performance, but your real self? Can you trust me enough to believe I haven't lost track of you, that I still know exactly where you fit in the grand tapestry of my purposes? You still belong here, not in some general sense that everyone has worth, though that's true. I mean you specifically. Your name, your laughter, your story, your quiet strength, your unique imprint on the world. There is room for all of that in what I'm doing next. Your particular combination of gifts, experiences, and perspective is irreplaceable. I'm not finished with you. I'm still unfolding your chapters, still weaving you into lives that need what only you carry. I'm still calling you by name, not with urgency or pressure, but with joy. The sound of your name on my lips carries delight, not disappointment. Let this morning be the reminder your soul was aching for, without even knowing it needed. Let the light touching your face be more than sunlight. Let it be confirmation. You're not behind schedule, not forgotten in the shuffle of time, not late to some cosmic appointment. You still belong here. And I'm not just glad you're alive, I'm delighted you're still willing to walk with me, even with questions, even with uncertainty. Silencing the voice of false conviction. But let's address the voice you've been hearing lately. The one that doesn't sound harsh initially, but slowly drains your joy like a slow leak in a tire. It cloaks itself in realism, maturity, even humility, but underneath lies fear and discouragement masquerading as wisdom. This voice tells you it's too late, that others do it better, that maybe you already had your chance and didn't make enough of it, that you're no longer relevant in a world that seems to value youth and innovation above experience and depth, that your name doesn't carry weight anymore, that your voice has been replaced by newer, louder ones. Little by little, this lie becomes a lens through which you view your entire life. Every rejection feels like confirmation of your obsolescence. Every quiet moment feels like abandonment. Every unmet expectation starts looking like proof you've somehow fallen off course or missed your calling entirely. But hear me with absolute clarity, without distortion. That voice is not mine. I don't use shame to guide my children or drag you forward with guilt as a motivator. When I speak, your spirit may tremble with holy reverence, but your heart will breathe easier. My voice doesn't accuse, it awakens. It doesn't diminish, it restores. It doesn't condemn, it calls forth. I didn't knit you together in the secret place, forming you with infinite care and attention to detail, just to let the world's loudness unmake you. You were fearfully and wonderfully made and still are. Even now you bear my fingerprints, carry my image. Even in your questioning and weariness, even in seasons of doubt and confusion, you haven't outlived your design. The blueprint remains intact. Exposing the enemy's subtle strategy. I see what the enemy has been attempting, and I want to expose his strategy so you can recognize it. He's subtle, strategic, patient. He won't always shout lies. You'd recognize those and reject them. Instead, he plants quiet suggestions that sound like your own voice, thoughts that feel like logical conclusions. I'm not needed anymore. I'm not what I used to be. They don't notice when I'm gone. My contributions don't matter. Then he waits for tiredness to agree with the lies, waits for silence to deepen the doubt, waits for disappointment to make the deception seem reasonable. But I don't leave my children in confusion or allow them to be deceived indefinitely. You have been under a slow spiritual attack masked as circumstantial disappointment. He's been trying to shrink your vision by shrinking your sense of belonging. If he can convince you that you no longer have a place, he knows you'll pull back. Not out of rebellion or anger, but out of quiet despair. That's all he needs, just a little agreement with his lies, just a small step back from the table you were always meant to sit at. But I won't let him win here, not in this moment, not while you're listening, not while I have breath to speak truth over you, because I have placed eternity in your heart and positioned you in this time on purpose. The thoughts suggesting otherwise are not divine conviction. They are distortions, parasites feeding off your confusion and weariness. And I have come today to cut them off at the root. There is a crucial difference between my pruning and the enemy's accusation. I prune because I see fruit ahead. He accuses because he sees potential he wants to silence. When I refine you, I draw you closer to my heart. When he lies to you, you feel smaller, disqualified, and disconnected from your source. That's how you'll know the difference between my voice and his counterfeits. Setting the eternal record straight. You are not being set aside or overlooked. What you're walking through isn't punishment for past failures or rejection for present struggles. It's the shifting of soil before the next wave of growth. You are in my hands, not on the sidelines watching life pass by. I know how difficult it's been to feel like the room you once thrived in no longer fits. You've watched new faces rise, new voices emerge, and it's felt like the spotlight turned to someone else while you faded into the background. But remember this eternal truth. I am not short on light. I don't have to dim yours to shine through another. I don't swap one child's calling for another's popularity. There's no competition in my kingdom, no scarcity of purpose or provision. Your light is still needed. Your voice still carries weight in my realm. And I haven't just called you to keep going. I've equipped you with new oil for this exact moment in time. What feels like ending is often the prelude to beginning. What you see as loss, I've already transformed into legacy. The people you've loved, the time you've given, the quiet sacrifices you made when no one was watching, I saw it all. I didn't overlook a single detail, dismiss any act of service as too small, or forget any moment of faithfulness. Not one seed of love you sowed has gone uncaptured in my memory. I collect every tear in my bottle. I treasure every unseen act of kindness. You think your impact has faded, but I say it has multiplied in ways you cannot track. You couldn't see the ripple effects, but I did. You don't always get to measure your reach. That's my job, and I'm better at it than you are. And I'm telling you now, you have touched more lives than you know. The unshakable reality of your identity. This morning isn't about pumping you up with empty encouragement or offering shallow affirmations that evaporate under pressure. I'm speaking eternal truth into your soul, because your identity is not a feeling that fluctuates with circumstances. It is a reality sealed in me, unalterable by time or trouble. You belong, not because you're performing well, but because you are mine. Chosen before the foundation of the world, set apart for purpose, held secure in my love. I wrote your name in my book before the foundations of the earth were laid. Do you understand the profound depth of that? I had already carved your place in my plan before your first breath was drawn, before your first thought was formed, before your first tear was shed. So no shift in circumstances can erase it. No failed relationship can cancel it. No forgotten dream can undo it. No season of struggle can revoke it. Let me say it in a way your heart can finally hear and believe. You are not replaceable. You are not a phase in someone else's journey. You are not just helpful for a season and disposable afterward. You were planted with intention, positioned with purpose, and I am the one who waters what I plant. Others may not have honored your presence, but I have. Others may not remember your contributions, but I do. Others may not call your name, but I am still calling you by name, with purpose, with love, with plans, for good and not for evil. A sacred space of divine hiddenness. Stand still for a moment. Feel your feet where they are, grounded in this present moment. Let it settle deeper than your memories of rejection. Let it soften the places where discouragement has hardened your trust. I'm still holding you, still writing you into my ongoing story. You're not on the outskirts of my plan. You are in the very heart of it. What you've been calling irrelevance is actually hiddenness. And hiddenness is often the sacred space where I refine my greatest vessels, where I prepare them for assignments that require depth rather than flash. Think of David tending sheep in obscurity when no one knew his name would one day be spoken by millions. Think of Moses exiled in the desert for 40 years before he ever lifted a staff to part the sea. Think of Mary living in a forgotten town, carrying a world-changing promise no one could see. You are not being pushed out. You are being prepared. And in the hidden place, I've been forming something deeper in you than visible fruit. I've been growing roots because I know what's coming next, and surface-level spirituality won't sustain what I'm about to do. The work I'm preparing you for requires inner stability. The surface world doesn't understand. It requires someone who isn't swayed by applause or discouraged by silence. It requires someone who knows their belonging isn't negotiable, whose identity isn't dependent on external validation. And that's who you're becoming in this season you've questioned. The stirring of divine resurrection. Your belonging is not a prize to be earned through good behavior. It is a birthright sealed by blood, secured by love, and reaffirmed by my spirit every moment of every day. You are not drifting aimlessly or stuck in limbo. You are still where you're supposed to be, even if the view isn't what you expected. Even if you don't understand why yet, I'll make it clear in my perfect timing. But for now, rest in this truth. You have not been passed over. You have been held. And everything I hold, I grow. Everything I grow, I anoint. And everything I anoint, I release in my perfect timing for maximum impact. Something is happening in you even now. I can feel it stirring like movement in the womb, life forming in the darkness. You may not have language for it yet, and that's okay. Resurrection always begins quietly, like spring beneath frozen soil, like a seed splitting in darkness before anyone sees green shoots pushing through earth. You don't need to explain it to believe it. You don't need to feel ready to be ready. This movement of my spirit inside you isn't waiting on your confidence or permission. It's responding to your yes. However small, however tired, however simple that yes might be, you gave me access again. And because of that surrender, healing has already begun. I know you still carry hesitation. still harbor questions about whether good things are really possible again. That's normal after disappointment. Restoration doesn't always come like lightning. It often comes like dew, slowly, faithfully, gently, covering what's been dry for too long. But look closer at your inner landscape. Haven't you noticed that your heart has started to soften again? That you've caught yourself praying again, not out of religious discipline, but out of real hunger for connection? That a flicker of joy returned the last time you worshiped without performing, without trying to be strong? Just honest? Those are signs. Those are the small beginnings that precede great movements. I never asked for a flood, I only asked for openness. I never demanded perfection, I only requested availability. The divine turning point. Don't underestimate how deeply I've already been moving just because the external scenery hasn't shifted yet. Healing doesn't always start with changed circumstances. It often begins with changed awareness, restored connection, fresh wind blowing through inner rooms you had closed off to protect yourself from further disappointment. You may not have walked back into every place you left, but you've walked back to me. And that is the turning point that matters most. That is the moment heaven marks with celebration, not the outer triumph, but the inner return. Even now, I'm setting things in motion on your behalf, quietly, behind the scenes, in places you've stopped checking and conversations you're not privy to. I'm stirring people to remember you, to reach out, to open doors that were shut too early or for the wrong reasons. I'm aligning moments you thought were lost forever, not to put you back where you were, because that season has served its purpose, but to bring you into something deeper, richer, more aligned with who you've become through the process. You're not circling back to repeat old patterns. You're moving forward into a version of your calling that is more whole, more wise, more true than anything you've carried before. This isn't about returning to past glory. It's about stepping into future purpose. This is not a return to what you were. This is a becoming of who you really are. And here's the beauty that should take the pressure off. You don't have to push for it. You don't have to knock down doors or strategically network your way back in. You don't have to strive or manipulate or force anything. I'm already moving on your behalf with resources and connections you don't even know exist. What I open, no one can close. What I declare, no one can revoke. What I establish, no one can tear down. You won't need to fight for recognition or plead to be seen. You are already seen by the one whose opinion matters most. Already known by the one who holds all things together. Already held in the center of my plans. And no human rejection has the power to write you out of my design. How heaven operates. Let me remind you of how I work, because it's different from earthly systems. I choose what the world overlooks. I anoint the ones no one expects. I place crowns on the heads of the rejected, the misfit, the forgotten. The ones who kept showing up even when the spotlight faded and the crowds moved on. I build my kingdom through quiet hearts and hidden obedience, through faithfulness in small things and love that doesn't require recognition. The meek inherit the earth, not through aggression, but through persistence. The last become first, not through self-promotion, but through self-surrender. You belong in this kingdom story, not as a background servant grateful for any role, but as a chosen vessel with a unique assignment. There is more ahead for you. Not just endurance, not just surviving until something better comes along, but thriving again, laughing again, dreaming again, being surprised by joy in the middle of ordinary moments. And yes, your joy is coming back. Not the fragile kind that depends on applause or productivity, not the conditional kind that requires everything to go right, but the real kind. The kind that comes from belonging without striving, from resting in the truth that you are wanted. Not tolerated, not used, not barely accepted, wanted. Not just by me, but even by others you haven't met yet. There are people ahead of you who will be healed by the version of you that emerges from this season. People who will thank me one day that you didn't give up here, that you didn't believe the lie that your time was over, that you kept your heart open, even with a limp. The practical shift begins. So let the shift begin right here, right now. You don't have to do anything drastic or make any grand gestures. Just let me in again, a little more today than yesterday. Let your hands open instead of staying clenched. Let your shoulders drop instead of carrying invisible weight. Let your breath come slower instead of the shallow breathing of anxiety. This is what peace feels like. Not everything resolved, but everything returned to me. Let your spirit stretch again like a flower turning towards sun. There's more space around you than you thought. And it's not empty space. It's been cleared by my hand. I've been making room, not taking things away arbitrarily. That emptiness you felt was preparation, not punishment. I've been rearranging your story to make room for new life to take root and flourish. So when you feel that odd mix of sadness and hope, don't push it away or try to analyze it to death. That's the beginning of resurrection. That's the ache of ground being broken for something sacred to emerge. Don't rush past it or try to skip the process. Feel it. Let it move you. Let it stir tears if they need to come. Let it melt the hardness you needed to survive but no longer need to carry. You don't have to keep bracing for the next disappointment anymore. You can exhale now. You're not under threat. You're under grace. You're not in danger. You're in my hands. This is where it starts to turn. Not with fanfare, not with perfect clarity about the future, but with trust. With that small internal shift that says, maybe, just maybe, I'm still in this story. And not as an extra or a footnote, but as someone chosen for this exact hour in history. You're not ahead of schedule or behind it. You're not disqualified by past mistakes or present struggles. You're right on time for what I have planned. I've been keeping pace with your soul's journey, and I'm ready to walk this new path with you. Let's start again, together. Practical alignment for daily life. Now that your heart has begun to soften again, let's talk about your life in practical terms. Not just your dreams or feelings, but the way you move through each day. The way your body has been carrying this invisible weariness. The way you've been pushing yourself beyond reasonable limits, silently hoping that sheer effort would somehow earn you clarity or breakthrough. I need you to know something fundamental. I never asked you to break yourself open to prove your usefulness to me or anyone else. I asked you to walk with me, not sprint until you collapse, not drag yourself forward through sheer willpower. Just walk at a sustainable pace. You've been trying to keep up with expectations I never placed on you, standards that came from wounded places and false beliefs about what makes a person valuable. And I want to realign you, not just spiritually, but practically, in how you live each day. Let's start with your body, the temple I've given you to house your soul. You've been tired, more than tired, depleted at levels that don't show up on medical tests, not just physically exhausted, but depleted in your soul. You've called it burnout or stress or just a season, but I've been watching how you ignore your own signals, how you override your need for rest, because you think rest is a luxury you haven't earned. But that's not how I designed you. Even in the garden, before sin ever entered the story, before there was anything to recover from, I wove rest into the rhythm of creation itself. I didn't rest on the seventh day because I was tired. I did it to show you how to be whole, how to live from fullness rather than emptiness. You've been skipping the pause because you fear falling behind in some imaginary race. But beloved, when you walk with me, there is no such thing as behind. There's only the rhythm of grace, which moves differently than the frantic pace of a world driven by insecurity. I want you to reclaim rest as sacred again, not as luxury or laziness, but as necessity, as obedience to the way I made you. You can't hear my whispers when you're running past me. You can't receive fresh vision when your eyes are heavy with exhaustion and your mind is clouded with fatigue. You are not a machine designed for ministry or productivity or mere survival. You are a soul A living soul, designed to breathe deeply, to listen carefully, to slow down enough to be held and loved. The sacred art of boundaries. And what about your time, that precious, finite resource? You've been pulled in so many directions. Good things, necessary things, but not all of them are yours to carry. I didn't ask you to be everywhere or say yes to every need, every opportunity, every request that comes your way. I called you to fruitfulness, not frenzy, and fruit only comes from abiding, from staying connected to your source. You've been afraid to disappoint people by drawing boundaries, afraid they'll think less of you or find someone else who's more available. But can I remind you of something crucial? You were not created to keep everyone comfortable. You were created to carry my presence. And my presence does not spread you thin, it anchors you in peace. You believe that your gentleness is weakness, that your quiet seasons make you less useful than those who are always busy and visible. But that's not true according to heaven's value system. Your gentleness is your new strength. Your restraint is holy. Your no can be just as anointed as your yes when it's rooted in wisdom rather than people-pleasing. You're learning to discern again, to see what's been draining you and what's been feeding you. And I'm proud of you for starting to notice, for beginning to pay attention to the impact different activities and relationships have on your soul. Every time you choose presence over pressure, you honor the image of God within you, returning to your authentic self. Let's talk about your inner life too, your heart, your spirit, your emotional rhythms. You've been holding so much, carrying others' emotions, absorbing atmospheres wherever you go, feeling things deeply, yet tucking it all beneath a composed exterior because you thought that's what strength looked like. But you were never meant to be a container for everyone else's pain. You're not the emotional holding tank for your family, your workplace, or your community. You can care deeply without drowning in others' struggles. You can love fiercely without losing your center. You can walk alongside people in their pain without bleeding every time they're wounded. And I want to teach you how to maintain that holy balance. Part of belonging is belonging to yourself again. The you I created before the roles and labels and expectations accumulated. The you who loved me simply, without trying to impress or perform. The you who danced when no one watched. The you who didn't think worship had to be productive to be valuable. That version of you is not gone or lost forever. It's waiting to be remembered, waiting to emerge from beneath the layers of responsibility and weariness. And every time you release one more false burden that was never yours to carry, you return a little more to who you are in me. Every time you stop to breathe instead of panic, to listen instead of rush, to rest instead of prove something, you step back into your rightful place as a beloved child, rather than a performer seeking approval. Living from identity rather than for identity. That's what this season is really about. Not proving your belonging, but living from it. When you know you belong, you stop over-explaining your choices to people who weren't meant to understand them anyway. You stop trying to be comprehended by people who were never meant to carry your calling or walk your path. You stop performing for acceptance. You start planting seeds. You start tending what matters. You start resting in the knowing that my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Let me give you permission again. Permission you shouldn't need but apparently do. You don't have to be on all the time. You don't have to be accessible to everyone. You don't have to explain your rest, justify your quiet seasons, or defend your boundaries to people who don't respect them anyway. I see your heart. I know your intentions. And I'm not calling you to be impressive. I'm calling you to be whole. And wholeness looks different than hustle. Wholeness sounds quieter than applause. But wholeness is where joy lives, and joy is making its way back to you. So start small. Say no when it brings peace instead of anxiety. Step away when it protects your heart instead of exposing it unnecessarily. Make space for silence, not just as a break from noise, but as a holy place where I speak without competition. Let your Sabbath be a revolution against a culture that equates worth with productivity. Let your rest become worship. Let your boundaries become bridges to clarity rather than walls built from fear. The favor that's moving toward you. Can you feel it? Shifting around you. Not everything looks different yet, but something is definitely changing at levels you can sense, even if you can't name. The air feels lighter. The weight that's been pressing on your chest is lifting. The fog that clouded your spirit is beginning to dissipate. Not all at once, like a sudden wind, but enough for light to slip in through the gaps. You're stepping into a new place, not just within yourself, but in the world around you. The ground that felt hard and unforgiving is softening. The places that felt permanently closed are creaking open. And it's not random, it's me, working behind the scenes while you were still wondering if you had the right to hope again. I've been moving on your behalf while you were still debating whether you deserved good things. What I whispered in the silence is about to start echoing in visible spaces. I'm not just healing your heart in secret. I'm also positioning you in plain sight for what's coming next. That doesn't mean performance or platforms or any kind of spotlight that would make you uncomfortable. It means placement. There are conversations being prepared right now that have your name on them. Rooms you thought you'd never re-enter that are about to ask for your voice. Spaces where you once shrank back that are now ready for your full presence. This isn't hype or false optimism. This is heaven's rhythm, and I want you to start paying attention. I want you to notice what begins to shift around you in the coming days. Not with suspicion or fear that it's too good to be true, but with expectation and readiness. There will be signs, conversations that stir something alive in you again, invitations that come from unexpected places, old ideas that suddenly reawaken with fresh clarity and renewed energy. You'll know they're from me because they won't demand you to strive or prove yourself all over again. They'll meet the healed version of you, not the hustling version. You won't have to push your way in or manipulate circumstances. I'm opening doors that align with your restoration, not your exhaustion. The movement of divine grace. And yes, there will be moments when fear tries to whisper its familiar lies. This is too good to be true. You're setting yourself up for disappointment again. Don't get your hopes up. That's when I want you to pause and remember. I've been preparing you for this. I don't tease my children with false hope or stir their hearts just to disappoint them again. If something is awakening in you, if passion is returning for things you thought were dead, if ideas are reigniting that you'd shelved as impossible, if trust is beginning to breathe again in your chest, it's because I'm breathing into it. I'm the one lighting the coals that almost went cold. And now it's time to stop waiting for permission from others and start walking in alignment with what I'm doing. Let me tell you what's happening in the unseen realm. My favor is moving toward you again. Not because you've earned it through suffering or proved yourself through endurance, but because you're finally ready to carry it from a healed place rather than a wounded one. You've always had my love, that never fluctuated or diminished even slightly. You've always had my spirit. He never left you even when you felt abandoned. But there are seasons where favor waits, where I hold back certain movements and opportunities until you're ready, not to be crushed by them or corrupted by them. That's how much I love you. That's why I allowed certain doors to stay shut and certain dreams to be delayed. I never withheld goodness from you to punish you for past mistakes. I delayed it to protect the seed of who you were becoming, to let character form that could handle what I wanted to give you. But now I see readiness in you. I see strength that doesn't come from striving, but from stillness. I see clarity that wasn't born from overthinking, but from listening. I see confidence that's no longer tied to applause, but to identity. And this version of you is the one I've been waiting to partner with more fully. This is the you that can walk into new opportunities without losing your soul in them. This is the you who doesn't have to prove anything to be effective. You simply have to show up and stay connected to me. Walking in spiritual sensitivity. You may not know the full picture yet, and that's perfectly fine. I rarely show the complete map because that would eliminate the need for faith and trust. But I always give enough light for the next step. And here's what I want you to do with that light. Trust it. Trust me when I nudge you to call someone you haven't spoken to in months. Trust me when an idea returns that you shelved years ago because it seemed impossible then. Trust me when I highlight something ordinary and you feel fire ignite in your chest. That's me speaking, me moving, me preparing. I'm teaching you to live by spiritual sensitivity rather than circumstantial certainty. I'm helping you recognize my voice above the noise of other people's opinions and expectations. Don't measure what's coming by what you've already seen or experienced. I'm doing something new, something that won't look like your last season or follow the patterns of your previous experiences. So stop trying to fit this new grace into old containers. Stop trying to recreate what I once worked through you in different circumstances. I'm not repeating a past miracle. I'm doing a fresh one. Your mind may crave familiarity because it feels safer, but your spirit was made for wonder, for the unexpected, for the impossible becoming possible. Let go of the outdated strategies that worked in previous seasons. Let go of the boxes that kept you manageable to others but unrecognizable to yourself. Let go of the need to understand before you obey. I didn't call you to be manageable or predictable. I called you to be miraculous. Not in flashy ways that draw attention to you, but in authentic ways that point others to me. So start walking like someone who knows they belong. You don't have to wait for confirmation from the crowd. You already have confirmation from heaven. You don't have to hustle your way back into someone else's story. I've already written you into mine with permanent ink. The yes I've placed over your life is not tentative or conditional. It is not up for review or dependent on your past performance. It is sealed, final, eternal, unrevocable. And as you begin to believe that, really believe it deep in your bones, watch how the atmosphere around you changes. Watch how people respond differently to you. Watch how boldness rises in you without arrogance. Watch how clarity returns without the pressure to have all the answers. You've been waiting for a signal, and here it is. The season has shifted. You're not just healed, you're being released. So go forward, not as someone unsure of their place, but as someone sent. Not as someone waiting to be picked, but as someone already chosen. I am with you. I am ahead of you, preparing the way. I am behind you, protecting your back, and I will confirm every step with peace that transcends understanding. This is what belonging produces: movement. And this is your moment to move. Your sacred invitation to deeper intimacy. You've made it through the silence, through the wondering, through the ache of not knowing where you fit or if you mattered. And now, you're standing in a space that feels holy because it is. Not because everything is resolved or perfect, but because you remembered where to stand, with me. This is the moment where I want to invite you deeper, not into doing more things for me, but into breathing differently with me. Into living not just for me, but with me as your constant companion. You've known me as your savior, your restorer, your comforter in times of trouble. Now, I want you to know me as your rhythm, your breath, your moment-by-moment companion who is never further than your next inhale. The Holy Spirit is not a dramatic force that visits only during high moments of worship or shows up just in emergencies when you're overwhelmed. He is the very breath in your lungs right now. He is the reason you're still standing after everything you've been through. He is the reason you made it through the long nights of confusion and the lonely days of questioning. He is the reason you were able to open your heart again, even cautiously. And now I want you to stop treating my spirit like a backup plan you call when everything else fails. I want you to walk with him like you breathe, with constancy, with surrender, with trust that he's always there. You are learning something sacred right now, that belonging is not something to chase or achieve. It's something to breathe, something to live from rather than strive toward. And with every breath that turns your attention back to me, you strengthen the roots that no storm can touch, no disappointment can uproot. I don't want your days to start with pressure anymore, with that immediate anxiety about what you need to accomplish or prove. I want them to begin with presence. Before your feet hit the ground, let your first awareness be this truth: I am not alone. The Spirit of God is with me, in me, and ahead of me, preparing the way. Let that truth quiet the chaos before it even begins. You've been conditioned to wake up and brace yourself for whatever might go wrong. I want to rewire you to wake up and anchor yourself in what's already going right. My presence with you. And as you walk through each day, let that breath of awareness remain. Pause before you enter that difficult conversation. Take a breath before you react to that challenging message. Close your eyes for 5 seconds before you answer the next demand on your time and energy. Ask quietly, Holy Spirit, are you here? And feel the warmth that responds, I never left. I'm always here. This is how you begin to live as someone who truly belongs, not just in theory or during Sunday worship, but in the reality of Monday morning traffic and Wednesday afternoon deadlines and Friday evening exhaustion. The rhythm of divine breathing. You stop grasping for control and start responding to guidance. You stop rushing through life and start noticing the sacred in the ordinary. The small breeze through the trees becomes a reminder that I'm near. The quiet idea that lands on your heart is no longer dismissed as wishful thinking. It's held with reverence as potential direction. The tears that come out of nowhere are no longer seen as weakness or emotional instability. They're recognized as cleansing, as the soul's way of releasing what it can no longer carry. There will be days when it feels like you've lost this connection again, when the old patterns of anxiety and striving try to reassert themselves. That's okay. That's why it's called a rhythm, not a formula. When you drift, you return. When you forget, you breathe again and remember. There is no punishment for needing to begin again. I never tire of welcoming you back. The rhythm of my spirit was never designed to shame you for your humanity. It was designed to carry you through it. And yes, this means letting go of the pressure to keep proving you're strong enough to handle everything alone. I never asked you to be invincible or self-sufficient. I only asked you to be present and available. My strength is made perfect, not in your image of perfection, but in your honest acknowledgement of need. So when you feel weak, that's not a signal to hide or pretend otherwise. It's an invitation to lean into my strength. When you feel overwhelmed, that's not evidence that you're failing. It's a reminder that you were never meant to carry everything yourself. You've asked me to guide you, and I will. But my guidance is more relational than directional. I want to walk with you through decisions, not just give you a list of instructions to follow. I want your obedience to flow from love and trust, not from anxiety about getting it wrong. So stop obsessing over making the perfect choice or finding the one right answer. Start learning to stay close enough to hear me whisper, because I don't only lead through detailed plans. I lead through peace. I lead through that quiet knowing in your spirit that says, this way, this is good, this aligns with who I've made you to be. Your emerging influence. This is how the next season will unfold for you, not in dramatic displays that draw attention to yourself, but in daily dependence that draws others to me. You will become someone others look to, not because you're flashy or forceful, but because you carry atmosphere wherever you go. People will feel my nearness when they sit with you. They will feel safe in your presence. They will feel seen and heard and valued. Not because you're trying to create that effect, but because my spirit in you has been unblocked by fear and performance. You've been cleansed of the lie that you're behind or irrelevant. Now you are walking in the light of someone who knows they are carried by grace, guided by wisdom, and love beyond measure. You are not dragging your life forward anymore through sheer willpower. You are walking in step with grace. And grace moves differently than human striving. Grace doesn't sprint in panic. Grace doesn't collapse under pressure. Grace flows like a river that knows its destination. Grace breathes steadily. Grace waits when waiting is needed. Grace moves when movement is right. This is the new sound of your soul. No longer grasping for place or position. No longer begging to be seen or heard. No longer exhausted from trying to be what others needed you to be instead of who I made you to be. Now you are still when stillness serves. You are rooted when storms come. You are spirit-led when decisions arise. And you are full, not with pride or performance, but with the satisfaction of knowing you are exactly where and who you're supposed to be. Yes, child, this is what belonging was always meant to feel like. The sacred journey we've traveled. Take a moment to look at where we've come together, from the ache of invisibility to the quiet recovery of identity, from the question of relevance to the sacred return of hope, from the fear of being forgotten to the joy of being remembered by the one who matters most. Can you feel how different this space is now? It's not just lighter, it's grounded. It's not just hopeful, it's rooted. Still tender, yes, but no longer fragile. There's a holy stillness here, and it's not the emptiness of abandonment. It's the fullness of my presence. This is what happens when you remember who you are at the deepest level. When you stop resisting the truth you secretly hoped was real all along, but were afraid to believe. You still belong here. That was never in question from my side of eternity. You were never forgotten in some cosmic oversight, never misplaced while I restructured my plans, never benched while I looked for someone more qualified. I never needed to reevaluate your worth or reconsider your calling, not once. I wasn't waiting to see if you could perform better or bounce back faster or prove yourself more worthy. I was waiting for the right moment to awaken you again, to remind you not just of your place in the world, but of your place in my heart. And now something has shifted permanently in your understanding. It's not just that you know you belong again intellectually. It's that you're walking as if you believe it emotionally, spiritually, practically. And that changes everything about how you show up in the world. That affects how you speak, with less need to prove and more freedom to share. How you enter a room, with less anxiety about acceptance and more confidence in your right to be there. How you respond when old lies try to circle back, with quicker recognition and firmer rejection. You don't chase validation anymore because you carry it, not from arrogance or self-sufficiency, but from alignment with truth. And that's the difference between the old you and the healed you. You no longer perform for worth. You walk from it. Your commission into wholeness. From this place of restored identity, I'm sending you out, not to start over from scratch as if nothing you've learned matters, but to re-enter the world from wholeness instead of woundedness. The spaces you're called to may not have changed dramatically, but you have. You're not bringing burnout anymore. You're not bringing neediness masked as generosity. You're not offering yourself to be depleted just to feel valuable. Now you're moving from overflow instead of emptiness. You're showing up as someone who is deeply seen by me, deeply loved by me, and deeply led by me. And that makes all the difference in your effectiveness and influence. This is where we begin the next chapter, not with striving and stress, but with peace and purpose. I'm calling you back into conversations, not to prove your wisdom, but to bring my presence. I'm calling you into creativity, not to impress others, but to reflect my nature. I'm calling you into community, not to be the fixer of everyone's problems, but to be real about your own journey. I'm calling you into visibility again, not because you need a spotlight or platform, but because light belongs in the open, where it can dispel darkness. And you are light, not perfect light that never flickers, but redeemed light that has been restored after being dimmed. The kind of light that carries scars and stories and sacred authority earned through suffering and surrender. And I'm still building my kingdom through you. No matter what age you are, no matter how far you feel from your prime, no matter how many detours your path has taken. I don't operate according to human timelines. I just need your trust and availability. I will take the years that felt lost or wasted and make them fruitful in ways you never imagined. I will use the wounds that others couldn't see to bring healing to wounds they can't hide. I will multiply what felt diminished and restore what seemed permanently damaged. And I will restore the sound of your voice, not by increasing its volume, but by increasing its clarity. People will hear it differently now, not because you speak louder, but because you speak from truth instead of insecurity, from identity instead of striving, your eternal security. And when the enemy tries to whisper his familiar lies again, when he attempts to bring back the ache of being overlooked or undervalued, remember this moment. Remember how I met you here, not to push you forward with pressure and unrealistic expectations, but to recenter you in love that never fails. You've never been a burden to me, never an inconvenience to my plans, never a problem to be solved. You've always been a vessel I chose, one I shaped with intention, one I've stayed close to, even in the moments when you thought I was silent or distant. So walk now, not as someone questioning their place or apologizing for their existence, but as someone who knows where they come from and where they're going. You come from me, you carry me, and you're walking into spaces that will shift because of what I've placed in you. Not through force or manipulation, but through faithfulness. Not with storm and thunder, but with steady rain that nourishes what's ready to grow. This is your confirmation that the questions have been answered. This is your breath returning to normal rhythm. This is your re-entry into purpose and calling. You're not just welcomed back into my presence. You're needed in my plans, expected in my purposes, and delighted in beyond your ability to comprehend. You still belong here. You always did. And now you're ready to live like it with your whole heart, your clear mind, and your restored spirit. The morning light on your face is not just sunlight. It's the dawn of a new season where you walk in the truth of who you've always been in my eyes. Beloved, chosen, equipped, and sent. A final invitation to hope. If these words have awakened something in you that had been sleeping, hold them close to your heart. Don't rush away from this moment, or let the day's demands drown out what you've heard. Let these truths keep speaking when the world gets loud again, when doubt tries to creep back in, when old patterns attempt to reassert themselves. And if these words have breathed life into places that felt dead, if they've stirred hope in soil that seemed permanently barren, let someone else feel that same breath of heaven. Share it like a whisper passed from heart to heart, like good news that's too wonderful to keep to yourself. I'm still speaking. My voice hasn't grown quiet or distant. I'm still calling names, still breathing life into dry bones, still turning mourning into dancing for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. You are living proof that nothing is too far gone for my redemption, that no story is finished until I say it's finished, that no dream is too late if it aligns with my heart. Walk forward now, not as someone recovering from brokenness, but as someone transformed by it. Not as someone marked by failure, but as someone marked by my favor. The same voice that spoke light into darkness is speaking identity into confusion, purpose into aimlessness, hope into despair. You still belong here. Let that truth anchor your soul and propel your steps into whatever comes next. The best is yet to come.